Hello, my name is Stephanie Chill. I'm Grants Coordinator for Florida Humanities. Today I'm going over the webinar for Greater Good Humanities in Academia, Application Tips and Tricks. So I'm going to go over a little bit about Florida Humanities, our definition of the humanities related to programmatic activities, as well as overview of the grant opportunity Greater Good, and then some things to keep in mind for successful grants, budget items, narratives within your application, as well as the process of how to apply. Now, Greater Good Humanities in Academia is a funding opportunity that is exclusively available for Florida universities and colleges. It is very similar to our community project grants, but we have found it to be very important to have an avenue for our colleagues at academic institutions to find funding to take their research information beyond the campus and engage the community with these important topics that are being researched and talked about. Now, Florida Humanities is almost 50 years old. We are coming up on our 50th anniversary next year. And for most of our history, we have worked with programs and funding opportunities that allow our partners to preserve, promote, and share the history, literature, and culture and personal stories that offer Floridians a better understanding of themselves, their communities, and their state. Now, you may be very familiar with the humanities disciplines, especially coming from an academic background. And this is a short list. We see projects spanning history, folklore, religious studies, anthropology, as well as political science, democracy, a lot of conversations around these important issues. And so the question really becomes, what is it though? What are we doing within these topics? What are we looking for through our grants and what we're funding? So we're looking for humanities as the process of pursuing and understanding our shared experience, offering an exploration through these topics that allow people to think creatively and critically, allow them to reason and to ask questions. So that is really key in what we consider to be public humanities programming. So we're looking for active experiences that allow the public to draw on methods and insights from the humanities, and programs that foster a greater understanding among people and invite thoughtful reflection. And that active learning is really key. We're looking for ways for people to engage actively with scholars, to ask questions directly, to talk to those around them in conversations and discussions about these topics. And then maybe not in that very moment, but certainly to lead toward that thoughtful reflection of how this topic in particular impacts them as a person within their society, within their culture, and how that impacts how they interact with the world around them. Now, some examples of what programming we have seen funded are lecture series and podcasts, heritage signage or interpretive signage and exhibitions, as well as exhibitions that have public humanities programming. So again, something active to engage the public. Oral histories with programming, so certainly a collection of oral histories or potentially a history harvest that has an event that allows people to come and learn from what has been collected or discuss with scholars, as well as those who have been interviewed. Community conversations, and reading and film screenings that also include discussions such as a book club or a film lecture series. Now, there are some things that unfortunately we cannot support. We are re-granting federal funds from the National Endowment for the Humanities. And so there are certain things that unfortunately don't fit within our guidelines or NEH's, such as things that are strictly art, the creation of art or performing art, such as theatrical productions by themselves. While they can be under the humanities, it doesn't have that element of engaging scholarly discussion. So a standalone performance by itself would not be fundable. Social service projects are certainly very important, but unfortunately our programs are really based in that academic scholarly discussion. So social service projects are not fundable. When we look at projects that come in, we're looking at a second or third phase, usually, of some scholarly research. Research by itself, either for archive purposes or for publications with no public engagement, would not be fundable. We are looking at maybe you're building on some research that you've conducted, and now you'd like to discuss that with the public. That discussion, that second phase element, may be eligible. And the other thing is projects without all the details. So our evaluation team is really looking to know not only what the content is, what the topic is that you'd like to explore, but how you're going to do that. So when you come to the application, your narratives that describe the content should also really be clearly and concisely talking about how you're going to do this. What are all the different details, all the budget lines that you, at your best estimation, looking at your project finances, need to have. So across the board, from narratives to budget, we're looking for those details. Greater good, humanities, and academia, as I mentioned earlier, is exclusively for Florida colleges and universities. And right now, when we have our proposals come in, we're seeing about 50% being funded. This is a little bit higher than our other opportunities, such as community project grants, and is really great approval rate, as we see this still being in its kind of infancy. It'd be going into our third year of offering this grant opportunity. Now, things to keep in mind. This is a grant that is up to $10,000 in support of public humanities programming. And we are looking for higher education departments, or as well centers, institutes, potentially museums or cultural centers that are affiliated with Florida colleges and universities. One of the new restrictions that we have this year is that we are only accepting 3 applications per institution. So we get this question a lot, is, am I eligible to apply? And so this kind of goes hand in hand with one of the reasons that we are looking at doing 3 applications per institution. We can accept multiple applications from one university or college, but when we break it down to the smaller fields, such as a department of history, we could only have 1 application from that department of history. Now, you do want to check internally to see what internal processes or policies your institution holds in order to determine if there's any pre-approvals on your institution side that need to be processed before applying to this grant opportunity. But we will accept up to 3, and it would be from 3 different departments or affiliates from the same college or university. Now, when we look at our projects, we are looking for projects that all include constructive dialogue. So a chance to really discuss and converse about the topic, ways that engage the public in that discussion. All projects must involve humanities scholars and other subject area experts. You may be a humanities scholar yourself, but certainly bringing in multiple viewpoints is always important. Programs should be free and widely available to the public. Programs can be in person or virtual, and they could be a hybrid as well. We also are looking for projects that have really thought about their audience. So we want to see that there's been thought into attracting a diverse audience, and that it's not just an on-campus, even if it's held on campus target, but that it is trying to target the communities around your campus or beyond the campus if it's virtual. We also are looking for projects that demonstrate the relevance of the humanities topic for the Florida audience. So a lot of these are very important topics for us in general as people, as Americans, but why in specific is this topic important for Floridians to engage with? Who qualifies as a humanities scholar? If you are tuning in from a university or college, you may be a humanities scholar yourself. But one of the things that we do is make it very clear, just to make sure that we're following all the guidelines from NEH as well as from what we have funded in the past, by using this definition as a humanities scholar is an individual who has an advanced degree in one of the humanities disciplines. We also encourage you to use subject area experts and community experts and involve, again, that broad range of perspectives to explore a topic. Now I'm going to go over a couple examples that we have seen some great programs come through. The University of West Florida Historic Trust was awarded $2,000 for Admiring the Hush Arbor program support. And so in this event, which is becoming an annual event, they really wanted to bring in some people from a little bit further from their local area, as well as increase their marketing so they could increase their reach. And so the $2,000 that they requested went towards honoraria to bring in people from different areas of Florida, some community speakers, as well as marketing on social media campaigns and through the radio. They also covered printing costs for program pamphlets so that people could have some material, some interpretive material to take away with them after the event itself. Another grant that was recently awarded was Flagler College Humanities Department, and they were awarded for Panama and its indigenous peoples at $5,000. Now this project is a good example of engaging the local community, but also when things change. And we know that things do change during a grant life cycle. This was originally awarded as a 2-day workshop, but because of some travel logistics issues, it ended up being a 1-day workshop, still covering the honoraria and travel for one of the speakers who was able to come, as well as a stipend for a local Panamanian dance troupe. And then those speakers were all in conversation together to talk about traditional dance and other traditional Panamanian art and cultural aspects, both how it is still done in some communities in Panama, but also how groups have taken those traditions and how they've evolved here in Florida over time. And this is, again, as an example, this changed partway through, and we were able to work with the grantee to reallocate some of those funds that would have originally gone to an additional speaker. And so instead of it being fully in honoraria travel, they were also able to cover some printing costs related to interpretive signage so that there was a on-site exhibition, photographic and interpretive exhibition for the speaker who is not able to attend in their culture. So let's go over some of the specifics that we are looking at. The upcoming 2023 deadline is May 31st, and our applications are due at 12 p.m. on that day. Now, this grant period will be awarded on July 5th, and this is another difference from past iterations of Greater Good. Instead of being 6 months, the grant will now be a full year. So you will have from July 5th, 2023 through July 5th of 2024 to implement your project. Now, we also have what we call a buffer period in there as well. So as you notice, public programs can start August 16th. And that just allows us a few weeks to make sure that we're getting all the contracts signed, getting the funds to you to implement these programs, and making sure that everything is in order paperwork-wise in order for the programs to begin. You can, of course, begin paying speakers and working on the logistics side of your project, but anything that is a program for the public to engage the public can't begin until August 16th. So the grant life cycle, to go over this briefly, you'll work on your application now, you'll talk with us about the project so we can give you an access code, and you'll have your application submitted by May 31st. Now, between May 31st and July, so all of June, our evaluation team, which is comprised of staff members, board members, as well as humanities scholars, will be reviewing all the applications and discussing these in order to figure out what will be funded or what they have questions on. And notifications for approval or denied will go out July 5th. Now, if you are approved, you have 12 months to implement your project. We, in part of those initial paperwork processes, ask you to request 90% of your funding. We try to get most of the funding out as quickly as possible so that you can begin working on that. During the program, during the grant project itself, We don't have an interim report, but we do ask you to submit event listing forms so that we know what events are happening and we can help promote them on our side as well. Now, the last part of the grant, if awarded, is that you will have 60 days to close your grant. And that is either 60 days after your last grant funded activity or 60 days after that July 5th closing date, whichever one comes first. When that final report is submitted, you request the final 10% as a reimbursement of those funds that you have already spent. Now, if you are denied, we strongly encourage you to seek comments. We do give the evaluation comments to anyone who requests them, so you can ask for that. Then you can revise your project, think about it further, discuss with us again, and apply again in the future. So now we've gone through the basics of the grant and some of the things to think about. So here are your steps to apply. First, you really want to brainstorm your project. What goals do you want to accomplish? What are you hoping to do with your project? And you're going to discuss that with us. And it's okay if you don't have one idea. Maybe you have two really great ideas and you're not sure what would be better. Let us know. We're happy to talk through any ideas with you and determine if your project is a fit or what might be a more competitive project. We're happy to give advice based off the experience that we have and what we've seen in the past come through our applications. Now, if it is a fit, we will give you an access code so that you can begin the application online. All of our applications are online. It's through floridahumanities.org/apply. And as you're working on your application, please ask questions. We are always here to help and provide support. And again, that last step, if you're denied, seek comments. One of the big reasons that we see grants not being funded, especially if it's a second or third time applicant, is because they haven't taken those comments to heart and really considered what the evaluators were asking about in those evaluation comments. So don't be discouraged if you're denied. Ask questions, ask for the comments, and we're happy to talk about it further to see how we can strengthen your application. So let's look at the application itself and discuss some of the key successful components. Now, one of the first things that you want to do when you do have an access code is add a collaborator. So with universities and college, the majority of the time you will be working with a grants officer, maybe a grant writer or specialist, or somebody from an office of sponsored research or an office of research. And they're very key to making sure that you're following all those internal processes that your institution has, as well as helping you very strongly with the budget. And so once you are into the application itself, you use this blue button in the top that says collaborate. You enter that person's name and you can set their permissions. And so they probably should be either editing or submitting to help you with some of the forms in this application. Now that person will receive an email and that will prompt them to set up an account if they don't already have one. And once they are logged in, they will see your request to join the application. And now anybody you add as a collaborator can see your application from the beginning through the full end decision. And if it is awarded, they will also see any additional information through the closure of the awarded grant. Now, one of the big components, probably half of our application, is the narrative. So these are the different sections that you're going to think about and work on as you work on your application. So your organizational mission, which we're really looking for your department's organizational mission within the university, not just the university or college's mission. We also look for content and program format, who the personnel are involved, so the project director, which is likely you, but as well as your speakers or any co-collaborators, any people involved in the projects themselves. There's a section for the audience and reaching underserved communities. So showing thoughtfully who you really are targeting for your project. Who do you think is your ideal audience to engage with this conversation? Your marketing and promotion plan, community partners, as well as fees. And one thing I'd like to note with community partners, this is a third difference from previous iterations, is we do require you this time to have at least one non-institutional affiliated community partner. So we want to see that you've made the effort to make those connections with someone not on campus. So not just another department at the campus, but maybe the local library or school system, or maybe there's a local nonprofit that would engage with this topic really well. And your community partner could be somebody who's helping spread the word. Maybe they're providing promotional support, or maybe they're just writing a letter saying that they agree to be engaged and help at the project itself. So really think about that, because the evaluators will want to see that you are engaging the community through your community partners. Now, when we look at successful narratives, we do see a lot of that word count used up. All of the narrative sections do have a word count. So they are limited fields, but we want you to be very clear and concise and really use that space well. These are well organized. So we often have like a summary of overall what the topic is and the content, and then a description of the events that are going to happen as a summary, as well as some more details. One of the things I would encourage you to really think about is not just justifying the content or why it's important to have this conversation, but how you're going to do it. So we're really looking for that balance of what is the content, why is this topic important to your community, why is it important to have this program, but just as much time spent on the how it will be implemented. How are you going to make this happen? Those details are really important to the evaluators so that they know not only, a lot of them will understand the topics already and already understand the justification for them, but they really need to know how you're going to use the funds to create these programs. Within your personnel section, again, this is a limited field, and so you don't want full biographies here. You want to list the name, what their role is within the project, and their affiliation. So are they at your university? Are they at a different university? Do they have experience with publishing in the topic? Are they a local community leader? And so you want kind of short, concise descriptions. And if you have a lot of people, we've seen some large projects, and if there are a lot of people, you can always upload as a supplemental document additional people if they don't fit under this particular section. One of the other things to also keep in mind is that with your personnel section, you'll be required to upload a letter of commitment, as well as a condensed 2-page resume for anybody who is involved. So the letter of commitment is just stating from the person that they agree to participate if this project is funded. And then the condensed 2-page resume is because if you do have 10 or 12 speakers or collaborators or people involved, some of the resumes can get quite long, and our evaluators are really looking for what is the most recent experience and activity that they have related to your topic. And there is a limit on how much you can upload. So keeping the resumes in a very simple format, not a lot of graphics, but keeping them to 2 pages will help you stay within that limit. We also want to look at the target audience. So we want to know that you've thought about not only the students or the faculty on campus, but who around you is going to benefit from this program. We see a lot of people draw in statistics from census data or past programs that they have learned from, really describing who the audience is, if there's a particular neighborhood or a particular demographic that they're trying to reach, and how that audience may or may not have been engaged before. Now, within your marketing and promotion plan, we want to know the different ways that you are going to be promoting this project. So not just social media, but what platforms? Are you going to be advertising on Facebook? Are you going to be using an Instagram takeover from one of your speakers? How are you going to utilize those different resources? And a lot of times we do see that universities or colleges will have a department of marketing or a department that will help run all of that. And that's fine for them to be kind of listed as the point department for your marketing and promotion plan, but we still want to know what they are doing, especially if you're requesting funds for marketing or promotion. We need to see how those funds will be used, whether it's social media or radio, or if you're printing flyers. And this is your space to kind of detail that. The other section is community partners. Again, this is going to require you to show at least one non-university or college affiliated community partner. And again, this is a brief description. So maybe the public library has agreed to host an event, and they're also going to offer some digital or tech support to run that as well. And so you're just going to list out those different partners and what their basic commitment is. This section will also ask you to upload a letter of commitment where your community partner says, yes, they agree, and this is how they will participate in the project. So unsuccessful versions of these narratives are often quite short. They don't provide enough detail, maybe just a line, we're going to organize workshops in the community. That doesn't tell us what workshops, what topics they're going to go through, when they're going to happen. A lot of the times the details we're also looking for, not an exact date of when you're having it, but an indication that it will happen during the grant period. So maybe in the spring, or maybe in March. We also see narratives that don't focus on asking for funding. So if you spend 90% talking about just the topic, that's not enough space for what you're doing and how you're going to use the funds if awarded. We also, when there's a lack of clarity, if it's difficult to follow, those are some reasons that a narrative may be unsuccessful. Within marketing and community partners, again, if it's too short, we're just going to do social media. That doesn't give the evaluators a good idea of what that means. And if you say we're just going to partner with the libraries, but you don't show that they've actually committed, there's going to be a lack of understanding and confidence there. Now, the other section, and this is where your fiscal officer may come in a little bit, well, a lot more helpful, but working with them to really nail down the budget and the specifics of yours within an academic budget is going to be another big portion of your application. So our line items, when you look at the application form, are honoraria, travel, facilities, marketing and outreach, indirect costs, and others. And we know that each university may have slightly different line items or account things differently. And however your university and college needs to do their accounting on their side is fine. But we do require that our applications, as well as our final projects, our final reports, use our forms and use the line items that we have provided so that we have standardized reporting on our side when we are giving information back to NEH. So related to indirect costs, you may have seen that and may wonder what that is. What is a federally negotiated indirect cost rate agreement? And this will come up. And if you aren't familiar, I encourage you to speak with your fiscal officer soon about this. But this is abbreviated as NICRA. And this is basically a percentage that your university or college has gotten from the federal government. They've made an agreement where the federal government says if you are awarded federal funds, then there's this much percentage that you can take for indirect costs. So facilities and administration, keeping the lights on, making sure administrative offices have the funding they need to process things like grant applications and grant reporting. Now, every university and college is different. Some universities and colleges do not have this agreement, in which case they can request a de minimis 10%. But most universities and colleges that we have worked with, we have seen have an indirect cost rate agreement. So you want to ask about that because that will impact your final working budget. If the university does opt to take 30% of the award funds, what's left over is what you have to work with. So you don't want a whole budget that doesn't consider this, because then you may be surprised later on if it is awarded, and then suddenly the university says, well, there's a certain percentage we have to take out of this. Now for Florida Humanities, from the way that we organize our budgets, this can be requested in your budget, or it can be shown in cost share, or it can be split between. And we are happy to discuss this more in detail whenever you reach out to talk about your project. Talking about the budget is another thing that we do. So we invite you to not only come with you or any collaborators to that meeting, but to invite your fiscal officer as well, so we can go over all the components of your project and application together. So successful budgets are very clear. They ask for the funds that are needed for the project. There's up to 10,000 that can be awarded, but if you don't need 10,000, ask for what you need. And the evaluation team will be looking at the budget line items and the activities, and really comparing kind of if that is typical, if that's normal, or how you've kind of justified within the details section why that money is needed and where it's going. All of our budget forms, we do ask that they be rounded to whole numbers. The other thing that you'll want to double check is the total to make sure that everything is totaling correctly. These do not have autofills. So you just want to make sure that that math is adding up correctly. And you want to make sure that all of the eligible cost share is provided as well. We do have a required 1-to-1 match. So if you request $5,000 for your project, you also have to show $5,000 in cost share. The second part of the budget form is the detail section. So this really should just be an expansion of that budget chart that's on the first page. And what you're doing is just breaking it down. So if you have $3,000 in honoraria or $2,500 in honoraria, and we need to see who that's going to. So you've listed these personnel in your narratives, so we expect to see them here as well. But this shows us how much each person is going to get, and if they're getting a full honoraria or if that is split somehow. Some speakers may opt to waive their fee or do a discount, and then you can show that discount in cost share. Now in the cost share section, we also want to see a breakdown of in-kind versus cash. So what has been donated just in kind, and what has been paid for either by the university or by a third party. Unsuccessful budgets do not add up. The math isn't quite right. There isn't enough detail in the detail section. So 900 for 3 speakers, but we don't know who or how much each speaker is getting. And it also isn't following the guidelines like the required match. So maybe this person is asking for 5,000, but they're only showing 4,050 in cost share. So you want to really be detailed in your budget and review this and go over it and make sure that everything is adding up correctly. So I've mentioned cost share a couple of times, or match. And so these are the costs that are additional to your award amount. So we're looking for what is that full number that it takes to implement your project. A lot of your time may go towards cost share. So if you are not being paid to work on this project, but donating your time, then that could go under your cost share amount. The other thing we talked about earlier was community partners. So if you are hosting an event at a library or a local high school and they're donating that space, whatever the value of that space typically would be an in-kind cost share, because they're not going to pay themselves, but they are going to waive that fee for you. Cash cost share may be something like refreshments for your event. Florida Humanities can't cover food or beverage. That doesn't mean you can't have it, but maybe somebody is going to pay for that to be on site. Or if you have publication costs, maybe you have an exhibition and you want to have an exhibition catalog. Catalogs themselves are sometimes more restrictive and not seen as active, engaging components. But if you have that budgeted to be covered by the university, that could be part of your cost share. So we've gone through some successful and unsuccessful tips, what to look for, what to really consider. So now you're ready to apply for funding. So you're going to, again, reach out to Florida Humanities staff so that we can discuss your budget, discuss your project, go over any questions you have. And once we tell you, yes, this is a great fit, you're going to go to floridahumanities.org/apply, and you're going to enter your account information. Now, we do want applications to come in under the project director, so the faculty member who is leading the project, and then adding collaborators like fiscal officers or other co-PIs. And this is so that we can track the applications by department, not by overall university. So if we have 3 from one university, we would expect to see the applications come in under, say, the Department of English, the Department of History, and maybe the cultural center located on campus for the humanities. So once you enter, you're not going to see Greater Good automatically pop up. You will see some of our other opportunities here on the apply page, but you do need to enter that access code in this top bar on the right side of your screen. And once you enter that access code, the Greater Good Humanities application will pop up. Now you can preview this, you can download this and look at it ahead of time. We also have a draft of the application on our website if you go to the Greater Good webpage. And then when you are ready, you've reviewed all the questions, you've got your narratives ready, you can hit apply and it will open the application for you within the portal. So thank you so much for joining and for watching today. If you have additional questions or if you're ready to talk about your project, please reach out. Email grants@flahum.org and we will get back to you soon so that we can set up a meeting. And again, if you're in a pretty well-developed stage of where your project is, we invite you to have not only yourself on that call, but also any co-PIs or your fiscal officer so that we can discuss the project details, but also your budget and ask and answer questions during that initial meeting. Thank you so much, and we hope to hear from you soon.